old Zack Snyder. Mr. Zack Snyder. You know, I am a fan of Zack Snyder, and I have got a bit of a soft spot for Man of Steel and Batman v Superman. I've got a bit of a soft spot for those films because, you know, I was a teenager when those films came out, and at the time I just thought they were the fucking coolest things I'd ever seen. You know, we had never seen Batman and Superman in live action together, and they were, you know, beating each other up. It was just fun. It was a fun time, man. Man of Steel, Batman v Superman era was a fun time, man. It was a fun time. So I have got a bit of a soft spot for those films. And I am a fan of Zack Snyder, you know. I like 300. I like Watchmen. You know. He's got a couple stinkers. I know a lot of people weren't overly fond of Rebel Moon. I enjoyed the first Rebel Moon a lot. I enjoyed the second Rebel Moon significantly less, but I think those films are alright. Zack Snyder teases Batman The Dark Knight Returns. You know, I really feel like Zack Snyder wants to come back to DC. I really feel that, because he was sort of, he left, you know, he didn't leave willingly. You know, the reason he left the production of Justice League was a family tragedy, you know. His daughter commits suicide. Very tragic, very sad. So he had to step away to deal with that situation. And he's never really, he's never come back since. But I think he does. I think he does want to come back, and there might be a chance of that happening. So, Zack Snyder just dropped another image stirring speculation, and this time it points directly at Batman. The photo shows Snyder's workbench filled with pottery jars, but eagle-eyed fans quickly spotted something tucked into the corner, a copy of Frank Miller's iconic graphic novel, The Dark Knight Returns. And you can see this image that Zack Snyder threw up on his Instagram. We got Snyder's workbench. He's working on some pots. Yeah, he's up in his pot game. He's pot maxing. Very cool. And left side, you can see a copy of The Dark Knight Returns. Hopefully you can see that. Maybe I'll make it clearer in the edit, or throw up an arrow or something. Yeah, a little teaser there. So, Zack Snyder wants Ben Affleck as Batman. Snyder has long expressed interest in adapting the story in a comic-accurate way. With recent buzz around Netflix's acquisition of Warner Bros. Discovery, some fans are wondering if this tease is more than just a coincidence. Sources tell us that Snyder wants Ben Affleck back as Batman, and that Affleck is open to returning under the right circumstances. Now, I believe I did talk about this a while ago now, when the news of this Netflix Warner Brothers deal first broke. I mentioned that Zack Snyder's got a very close, pretty tight relationship with Netflix. I mean, he's done about, I don't know, 3 or 4 projects for Netflix now. I think he did both the Rebel Moon movies were for Netflix. He had that zombie bank heist film set in a post-apocalyptic Las Vegas, whatever that's called. One of you will know what that's called. Don't know off the top of my head. He had that film. I never saw that. And there would have been something else. So he's done quite a few projects for Netflix now. And he's got a pretty good relationship with them. And they clearly like using his talent. And because of that, when Warner Brothers does finally get acquired by Netflix, there's a chance that he can leverage his relationship with Netflix to get himself back in there, get himself back into DC, which could be very, very interesting. I mean, I think we're at a point where there's a good chance that a significant percentage of the fan base would side with Zack Snyder over James Gunn. I think there is. I think you'd be surprised how many people would go back over to Zack Snyder, sort of rally behind Zack Snyder. I mean, look at how much support that was picked up to release his cut of Justice League. I mean, that was all us. That was all the fans. That was the fan base that got his cut of Justice League out there. So, you know, anything's possible, man. Anything is possible. We're also hearing Snyder's recent wave of Justice League era behind-the-scenes images is more than just nostalgia, as he's reportedly testing fan response, which has been overwhelmingly positive. Could a live-action Dark Knight Returns be next on Snyder's list at Netflix? Ben Affleck's new movie with Matt Damon, The Rip, happens to be at Netflix. Affleck also has the Batsuit fully on display at their studio. If Paramount happens to nab WBD, we're told the Snyderverse could be fully back in play, and that is very interesting. Yeah, that's the thing. He's got a very good relationship with Netflix. He's done a bunch of projects for them already. I think there's a good chance that he could leverage his connections over at Netflix once this deal is finalised to make his way back over to DC. And he clearly wants something Batman related. He's always going on about Batman. Zack Snyder's always going on about Batman. And I know he got shredded up a bit back in the day for not really understanding Batman, because there were some clips that went viral of him in like press doing going on the press tour for Batman v Superman and being like, why doesn't Batman just fucking kill people? I don't understand why Batman just doesn't have a gun. I'm paraphrasing, but it was something to that effect, where he was just like confused why Batman just doesn't fucking mow down his adversaries. Yeah, you know, so of somewhat not understanding the point of Batman's character is that he doesn't kill because his parents were killed by criminals, and if he killed the criminals, he'd be just as bad as the people who killed his parents. It's a whole moral dilemma. Yeah, so there were a few clips that went viral of Zack Snyder not really understanding the character of Batman, and he got shredded up for it quite a bit back in the day but a comic accurate, dark, gritty Dark Knight Returns adaptation by Zack Snyder could be very interesting. What has Zack Snyder said about The Dark Knight Returns? Back in December of 2023, Zack did say he would end his superhero career with The Dark Knight Returns. If you look at Watchmen, where Alan Moore took like basically iconographic characters that you could superimpose over a lot of, if Night Owl is Batman and Dr. Manhattan has Superman-ish qualities, you can make all these different sorts of archetypical hero analysis over the top of those heroes, Snyder said at the time. Snyder continued, the thing about Dark Knight Returns is it is literally Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman, and the deconstruction is so obvious and so palpable. For me, it was like comics grew up in a single moment. When I read that book, I was completely laid bare. Everything I thought about superheroes, for me, it's the greatest comic book ever written. If I could do that, then I will have done Watchmen and The Dark Knight Returns, and I would be pretty much done with superheroes. Yeah, that would be a pretty crazy filmography. Comic book wise, superhero wise, Watchmen's a pretty iconic comic book, and The Dark Knight Returns is very iconic. I talk to people who don't really understand comic books or any of this, that know what The Dark Knight Returns is. Yeah, that would be a pretty insane filmography. I mean, another great comic book is The Killing Joke. They've done a feature-length animated adaptation of The Killing Joke, but a live-action Killing Joke would be fucking awesome. I mean, a Zack Snyder Killing Joke adaptation has potential, because obviously he loves dark and gritty. I mean, look at Watchmen. That's, Watchmen is in, his adaptation of Watchmen is in the same vein as Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, and even Justice League. I mean, his cut of Justice League, the Snyder cut of Justice League, is very similar to Watchmen and Batman v Superman and Man of Steel in its tone and the way it is delivered. So that's clearly the angle that he likes to go down when it comes to superheroes, which is fine. I mean, we've got plenty. If you want like fun, very comic booky superhero movies, we've got plenty. Literally nearly every MCU movie is fun and energetic and light-hearted, and jokes every other line of dialogue. That's nearly every MCU movie, which is fine. They cracked the formula. And obviously there's a few exceptions where it gets, Winter Soldier is a bit more serious. Civil War's more serious. I'd argue Infinity War and Endgame are more serious. I mean, they are very comic booky, but I'd argue they're more serious. Iron Man, I'd argue Iron Man is a lot more serious. But yeah, so that's clearly how he likes to execute superhero movies, comic book movies. He did it with Superman, which I'll admit wasn't a great angle. Like, dark, gritty and serious doesn't really work for Superman. It doesn't. It's literally the opposite of Superman's character. I'll say that. But for Batman, it definitely works. And I like his Batman. Ben Affleck's Batman. I like Ben Affleck's Batman. A lot of people are with me on that. Ben Affleck's Batman has a lot of support. There's a big fan base behind Ben Affleck's Batman. I mean, is he better than Robert Pattinson Batman? I don't know. I like Robert Pattinson's Batman a lot as well. I mean, we've only seen him once. We've only seen Robert Pattinson's Batman once so far. But I like his Batman a lot. Probably, for me, it's probably equal, to be fair. Ben Affleck's Batman and Robert Pattinson's Batman are about equal, for me personally. But I think a Zack Snyder Dark Knight Returns has a lot of potential. And I think something like The Killing Joke would have a lot of potential as well. Those are stories that I think work well with Snyder's style of filmmaking and how he likes to approach these things. But we've got a while until this Netflix Warner Brothers deal is finalised. It will happen either late this year or as late as summer 2027. So potentially we've got until summer 2027, a whole year, over a year, because it's January. So over a year until this deal is potentially finalised. And then we could see how things go. I mean, what's the landscape going to look like in summer 2027? I mean, probably not much different. I mean, what have we got DC-wise? What have we got coming out between now and summer 2027? We've got Supergirl. We've got Clayface. The Batman Part 2 comes out October 2027 for the Batman Part 2, so not that. Okay, so we've got like, and it depends when Man of Tomorrow comes out. I think Man of Tomorrow is like 2028. I don't think that's even in any significant stage of production. So really, we've got Supergirl and Clayface coming out between now and summer of next year. So there might be something else. I think I'm missing something else. But regardless, not much. I don't think, realistically, we're going to be in a much different spot summer next year. You know, we've got a couple films coming out that nobody really cares about. Nobody really cares about Supergirl. Nobody really cares about Clayface. And they're not really going to do much. Not going to have much impact whatsoever. So we're practically going to be in the same spot next year. So this has potential. This has potential in my mind. And I think I'd like to see it. So yeah, that's all I wanted to cover for today. So see you later.